Okay, so my history of nursing project is this poster right here. It just consists of little simple drawings of some famous nurses. This one as well. This one says Nurses Today. And what I chose to do is just speak over these certain nurses and how they relate to the nursing process. Now, the reason I chose to do the nursing process is because I feel that it is such a fundamental, integral piece of nursing, no matter which nurse you look at. And I just found it very interesting to see how the nursing process could have been applied to each nurse I researched. So here's the thing about the nursing process. It didn't actually exist, or at least it didn't have that term until Ida J. Orlando created that term for as a general theory for nurses to practice. Okay, so the nursing process wouldn't have existed, or at least that term would not have existed for some nurses like Florence Nightingale and Dorothy Dix. Now, what I did to research them was to find out certain key aspects to the nursing process that would reflect what these nurses did. Now, what I feel that the nursing process would have been for anyone that existed before the period where it was officially termed, I think it was just anyone who analyzed the situation, analyzed the patient and what their symptoms and what their immediate needs are, and meeting those needs in the hopes for better patient outcomes. Now, naturally, I'd like to begin with Florence Nightingale, and Florence Nightingale is probably what inspired me to have this idea for a topic in the first place. Florence Nightingale, through the readings, I found out that she very much so did the nursing process well before even Ida J. Orlando. And that reason being is because she created a lot of fundamentals that we know today. The types of fundamentals I would be talking about is that Nightingale is, in the reading, it talks a lot about how she observed the patients and how she was able to find out that certain things, like, for one thing, not washing your hands or being very unsanitary in general, would cause a lot of sickness and vulnerable patients. These fundamentals we see today, very much so, because of constant analytics. Should hospitals wash their hands? Yes, we practice that very much so. It's a constant practice of fundamentals that Florence Nightingale has put out there for us to begin with. A great woman, that Florence Nightingale. I could always read more about her. Dorothy Dix, however, I could have chosen any nurse for this particular corner right here. However, Dorothy Dix's story I also found compelling. And like I said, any nurse, you could say, is able to analyze and see what's visibly more comforting for patients. But Dorothy Dix was kind of a pioneer for mental asylums because of the fact I believe she started working in a prison or jail of sorts, where she was able to be upfront and personal with some of the patients or the prisoners there, and she was able to see how cruelly and unjust the captives or even the mental captives were not taken very good of. Because of her ability to observe, to unconsciously apply the nursing process, she believed that treating mental patients could be better than it is at this moment. And this movement that she had further enhanced to creating a lot of mental asylums. So reading more into Dorothy Dix, I found that her story was it's a very good applicable story for the nursing process that I'm trying to explain, and that's the ability to improve things beyond what they are through observation and science, really, in a way. Now, Ida J. Orlando, I'm surprised we don't hear more about this person. She is she's the person that came up with the term nursing process, or at least where it got its start as that name. Now, Orlando researched in hopes of defining the term nursing, but ultimately came up with this theory of specifically called the nursing process theory, that focused on the interaction between patient and nurse. And then this research created a device we know today as the nursing process. But it's more than just treating patients. It's kind of the definitive form of documenting and being able to grow and learn through past failures, past successes, just the history of what we have been doing through what's the word? Evidence-based practice, that's it. Now, because of the creation of the nursing process, we are able to use evidence-based practice. We are able to create newer evidence-based practice based on the nursing process that we have used in the past, such as Nightingale's interpretation of how she used data, how she planned to care for her patients, eventually came down to how Ida J. Orlando would create a standard for nurses today. And speaking of nurses today, that's a good segue into my next topic, which is exactly nurses today. And nurses today still use the nursing process. It's a very effective tool. I think it's a very fun tool that I look forward to using one day. Now, the reason we continue to use the nursing process, it's mostly for the reason that we want to be able to document our outcomes, and we want to basically do what Florence Nightingale did, which is being able to make new breakthroughs in the field of nursing, which is able to not only work through personal, grow in personal levels, but maybe even influence the entire field of nursing through growth in through the nursing process. So to summarize my interpretation of the nursing process and its endless history, Florence Nightingale, she is a great nurse. She's still highly regarded with every single nurse to this day. I think what she did for nursing in general reflects what the nursing process stands for, which is scientific and carefully formulated growth in the field of study that is nursing, and being able to improve constantly. And it's why she's so revolutionary in what she did, because of it's so far ahead of her time in terms of nursing practices compared to anyone else in that time. Florence Nightingale, love her. I could read about her all day, like I said. Now, Dorothy Dix, I really liked her example because anyone could have been able to see prisoners and mentally ill patients and not thought much of it. However, because of her compassion, which is at the root of all nursing, I believe, she was able to create a better standard for even people of lower status, like prisoners and mentally ill patients. And because of that, we see a better society, in my opinion, today. Ida J. Orlando, she created a really great process, a really great theory, one that we still use today. For nurses today, we find ourselves constantly still learning about this, and being able to practice using this is normal with students today. And the reason I included nurses today, or the future of nurses, in the history of the nursing process was because, well, I think every day we are making history, therefore we should have how nursing process will influence the future of nursing by creating a a better standard with each new generation, and I think that's what Florence Nightingale and every single nurse before would have wanted from nursing. Okay, now I'd just like to end with my final thoughts on this project. And when I was thinking of an art form to use for this particular project, I was thinking, well, I know I like creating things, so I decided to make a poster board. This one right here. I don't draw particularly well, however, I can make very simple doodles. And I think there's beauty in simplicity, so I think that worked out pretty well to me. And I like how simple the poster came out, which was just a thought bubble between, well, it should symbolize every single thought process coming from all of our minds. However, I could only fit four drawings of nurses. Okay, so I chose to speak over this presentation instead of pasting it on the board. For one, I thought the board looked better without the words. I did use notes during my presentation so I wouldn't be completely lost during it. I think it was a really good way to put some personality into the way I presented the nursing process, and I think that's important in trying to show how I feel about nursing in general.